practice.
Thank you. All right, welcome this evening. We're going to start tonight out with our special summer recognition. Thank you to everyone in the room who was able to attend. We're going to start with our synchronized swim team. If you guys could come on up to the podium, everyone representing synchronized swim. State champions, thank you so much for coming out.
So I understand, I'm new to the district here, so you guys are pretty impressive, not only this year, but over time, it sounds like, huh? Mm-hmm. So the synchronized swim team won back-to-back state titles. They outscored their runner-up Wayzata 180-90 to earn their 20th state championship overall. In 50 years of competition, the Pony synchronized swim team has not finished less than second place once.
Wow.
So why don't each of you just tell us your names and what year you are in school and anything you want to say about swimming. So go ahead and start.
Is this on?
Yep.
It is on.
Okay. I'm Juliana Silva, and I'm a graduating senior. And I've been on the team all 6 years, but I've been doing it since I was 6 years old.
I'm Hannah Weezy, and I'm going to be a freshman in high school, and I've been doing synchro since 3rd grade.
I'm Sierra Roselle. I'm going into 8th grade, and I've been doing it since 5th grade.
I'm Emily. I'm going to be a sophomore, and I've been doing it since 6th grade.
Well, with your young ages and years of experience, I'm sure we're going to have continued success well into the future. So thanks for showing up tonight and representing your team very well, ladies.
Thank you.
Our next recognition is for our also state champion baseball team. Come on up, boys and coaches or whoever else is here with them.
Okay, so here's what I have to say about baseball. The Ponies baseball team captured their second state championship in 4 years. Stillwater dominated Farmington 8-1 in the Class 4A title game. It is the third state championship for Ponies baseball, who also took home the top prize in 2018 and 1991. Coach, you want to say a few words, or boys, or what? Go ahead.
I'll introduce these guys. We've got our three of our captains up here, and it was a special year because we had 19 seniors, and they were all captains this year. It was the first time we ever did that, and it's probably the best move I made all year. But these guys are phenomenal kids and great students and great representatives of our high school. And so I really appreciate everything that these boys did for the community and for our school. Our community gave so much to this team, financially and morally, from our great bus drivers to our organizations and businesses and our families were just unbelievable. And this can't happen without all of that. So we've got Austin Buck, Parker Gilchrist, and Mason Buck. You guys want to say anything? Or these are all graduating seniors. We had 19 graduating seniors on this team. So it was definitely an older team. And they started all this work last fall. And it took a lot of time and energy for these guys, a lot of sacrifice.
Plans? How about plans for the
Come
future?
on, guys.
Plans for the future.
We're all
What are you
playing
going to be doing
college
down the road?
baseball.
Yeah, the three of us are all playing college baseball. I'm going to St. Olaf College in Northfield. I'm going to try out this fall. Hopefully I'll make the team. I play infield and a little bit of pitcher.
I'm going to the University of Minnesota Morris, and I'm going to be a pitcher there. So it should be a good experience for me.
And I'm going to UW Eau Claire, trying to play infield, outfield, not really sure yet, but yeah.
Very cool.
Well, thank you very much and good luck in school, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great. right. We do not have any speakers signed up tonight for public comment, so we're going to call this meeting to order. Joan, can you help us out and facilitate the roll call, please?
Director Hocker. Here. Director Kelsenberg.
Here.
Director Petrie. Here. Director Porbeni. Here. Director Riley. Director Fatava. Chair Sherman.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Great. All right, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're going to start with the approval of tonight's agenda. I'll make the motion. Can I get a second to approve? Okay, Director Petrie, all those in favor of approving tonight's agenda, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Motion passes. No nays. Let's start now with the superintendent report.
Thank you, Chair Sherman. So again, I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago, the last number of weeks, I've been heavily involved in meeting with people throughout the school district. I've been meeting with members, community leaders, leaders within the school district. This week I've started to meet with school board members, all to really try to get a flavor for what Stillwater Area Public Schools is about. Have been just receiving a lot of great information about a lot of the successes in the district and some challenges that we've seen as a community. And I will be, later this fall reporting that information to the board. But this has been a great introduction for me to meet people and get a real idea of what our community is about. So I want to just thank everyone for taking their time to meet with me so far. And, I think for the next 6 weeks or so, we'll continue with the journey of learning about our school district here. This past week, had the opportunity to start pointing towards fall here. We had our really a good meeting with our principals, our directors, our coordinators last week, planning meeting for the upcoming year, go over staff development initiatives for the year, and just really give me an opportunity to introduce myself to the team and provide some of my core leadership beliefs to the group, and been real impressed with the caliber of leaders we have throughout the district here. So that was a good opportunity for me. Yesterday, I only got to meet with some of the administrators and coordinators, but I spent a good part of the day here with a lot of the teacher leaders, as we had somebody from Solution Tree here. They are the professional development gurus in the areas of professional learning communities. And so we had a presenter from Seattle, Washington. And really what the focus is developing the facilitators or the leaders of the professional learning communities throughout the district, so that they all have a similar base on how to run the PLCs. I think you're going to see significant dividends for this as teachers learn to align what they're doing across the district, and our students in turn will have a similar experience in school. So I think it's a great opportunity for people to look at improving processes. Just a couple things for the board. Next Tuesday, the 16th, is the new teacher first day and the new teacher luncheon. Will be at 11 o'clock at the high school. So please let Joan know if you can attend that. And then on the 23rd, we have the back to school get together for all the staff in the district. And Dr. Jennifer Clifton will be speaking to the district. And really, a lot of what folks have been doing these past couple of years is they've been living through COVID. And we all hope last year we were going to be able to be recovering through COVID. And in a lot of ways, last year was even more stressful. So Dr. Clifton is really an expert in care and care of oneself. And so I think that's a great theme, is we want our staff to be refreshed to best meet the needs of our students as we start the school year here. So that's my report this evening.
Great, thank you. My report is, I just had one special recognition tonight, and she doesn't know I'm going to do this, but I felt like we needed to acknowledge Director Petrie's appointment to the Association of Metropolitan School Districts. She will be serving on the executive committee. And for those community members who may not know that, it's a legislative group that advocates on behalf of all metropolitan school districts, if you remember. It's very just valuable information, valuable advocacy, and we are so thrilled and honored to have you from our district serving in that capacity. You're going to do great work for them, but I think you're gonna also bring a really great perspective based on your experience here. So I just wanted to, I know the whole board wanted to recognize you for that achievement, so congratulations.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we'll be hearing more about it, so great. And that was all I had. So we will move on to tonight's consent agenda. The consent agenda is on the screen. No need to read it out loud. I will make a motion to approve tonight's consent. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Great. With a first and a second, all those in favor of approving tonight's consent agenda, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Tonight, we have one action item, approval of the 2021-2023 custodial contract, and we're going to turn it over to Superintendent Funk.
Go ahead to the next slide. So here's the summary of the agreement with the custodians. They have agreed to this, and we're just pending board approval this evening. So the bullet points are on the slide. You can see the bottom line at the bottom is total new cost to the district, $207,306, and this is within the budget.
Any questions, or is there a motion to approve? Director Petrie?
I make a motion to approve the custodial contract.
Great. Is there a second? Dr. Kelsenberg? Great. Any comments or questions before we vote? Great. All those in favor of approving the custodial contract for 2021 through 2023, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Opposed? Contract approved. We're going to move on tonight to reports. We have a second reading for policy 206, public participation in school board meetings and data privacy considerations, and we will bring up Dr. Cherry.
Thank you, Chair Sherman, Board Directors. Coming back for a second reading on public participation in school board meetings and data privacy considerations. As you recall, at our last meeting, we had just a few comments to ensure that the language in this policy was consistent throughout. We changed a little terminology with the word persons versus citizens, and so we cleaned that up a bit. And that was really the only significant change since our last reading. So,
One more just minor addition. We had a conversation under section C, or no, that's 6A1, where we took out the word address. We did add in contact information. That was a request by board members at the last meeting as well. And then at the very end, we did add a little hyperlink for our procedures within the policy itself. So,
Great. Are there any questions or comments on this? Thank you for making those changes. We still have a chance to, as a board or as community members, to send any questions or concerns to both Dr. Cherry and Director Hockert. Great. Okay, we will move on to Report B, second reading, Policy 207, Public Hearings. Back to Dr. Cherry.
all right, thank you. So I will just continue public hearings. We did have a little bit more discussion at the last business meeting. A couple of items that have been updated since the last reading is specifically around section 3C, number 4, the privilege to speak. just some clarity there. This policy is specifically about the public participation in these public hearings, and so wanted to clear that up. We did strike the first sentence in that area. That sentence actually is covered under your regular Roberts Rules of Order, a previous policy, so to ensure, just again, that we were clear here that we were talking about the public's participation and how they would speak during that public hearing. And then the other change or update is to ensure that we have procedures that go along with this policy. And by default, we added in the public participation procedures, the same that we use during public comment. But knowing that these are procedures, and for each public hearing, they may be a little bit different, and there may be different needs for public participation, and so there is the opportunity for the board to adjust those procedures as needed in anticipation for different types of community input. And so at any given point in time during a public hearing, if the board wished to chose to change those procedures to fit the need, you would have the ability to do that.
Great.
Okay. But at least there you have a baseline for what to work from.
Did we, just a quick question, I know that the one that always comes up is the truth in taxation. Is there I think sometimes we've had time limits, sometimes there hasn't been a time limit. Did you guys look into the legal standard for that at all?
It's it's the board's decision.
Oh, it is? Okay, so it's not an open-ended, it's not legally, we're not required to do that?
Correct.
Okay, great. That was my only question. Yes?
So then just to clarify, do you have any advice on when we would set that? Because I'm not sure that we've ever really set a limit on people being able to speak that truth in taxation. And so do we establish a procedure then to go along with that, or do we do it at the board meeting before we have it?
I would recommend you go with the similar procedure to be consistent that you have when you have an open forum. And if suddenly you have taxes skyrocket and you're inundated with a large group of people, this provides the board the flexibility to say, okay, we need to change it for this evening because, there's 50 people here and we want to let, 30 of them talk or for 1 or 2 minutes rather than, I think yours is 3 minutes for up to 15 people right now. So it does provide you the flexibility if there is a hot issue to adjust as needed.
And we would do that during the meeting?
You could do that during the meeting.
So we could see how many people showed up and...
Correct.
All right, thank you.
And not that anyone is probably listening, but I always do recommend to, or at least remind people that anyone in the community can call staff and ask these questions too, outside of any kind of public comment. And I just think it's good to know that we talked a lot in our first meeting about that communication and collaboration with the community, and it doesn't have to always be so formal. It can just be.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, historically, if people do have questions on their tax statements, we really encourage them to call the district central services building or the finance director and really have that one-on-one conversation. They're going to get their answer much quicker than speaking with the board about it at the meeting.
Exactly. So just a reminder. Great. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to move on to our next item, item C, which is market research project. And Carissa is coming up with some guess, I think.
Good evening, Board Chair Sherman, members of the board, Superintendent Funk. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present tonight. I'm excited to have Deb and Rosemary here. They're the real experts. But before I turn it over to them, I just wanted to give you a little insight on what this market research project was all about. We were really trying to better understand our community and their perceptions of the school district and learn a little bit more about what are the strengths and what are maybe some of the opportunities for improvement that we have as a school district. And why do people make the educational choices that they make? We know that there are more and more choices for our students and our families, and we wanted to better understand how we can meet our families' needs, where maybe we're missing the mark. And from a communication standpoint, some of it is even just messaging. What do we need to be talking about that will really resonate with people? I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the last time we did this project was back in 2014, so it's been quite a while. And that particular study gave us some really great insights that I can tell you how we actually use to improve our schools and help our students. One of the things we heard loud and clear from 2014 was that our schools at the secondary level are big, no surprise. But people were really feeling like kids were getting lost in the shuffle. And so if you can imagine back to 2014 and where we've been since then, we've been very intentional about bringing in programs like Web, Link Crew, to help those kids as they're coming into 6th grade and 9th grade, build connections with teachers, with other kids, and create more of small learning communities. That's also where BAR came from, and you have heard about BAR before. You know how successful BAR has been at helping kids connect with teachers, with other kids, and really to help academically. We've seen the results too. It's helping kids succeed. So I just wanted to give that as an example that research like this really does matter. It's not just some exercise we go through. We learn information that can help us make very important decisions that have a huge impact on our kids. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Deb and Rosemary, let them introduce themselves and really dig into this particular project.
Thanks, Carissa, and thank you for having us. So it's nice to see you. Some of you I've spoken with. I'm Deb Fiorella from Frankie and Fiorella. And our firm specializes in brand strategy, identity design. We've done this work for huge corporations as well as public school districts like Hopkins Public Schools and other learning organizations like McPhail Center for Music. So we've been doing this for over 25 years, so this is our specialty. I'm joined by our creative director here, Craig Frankie, who wanted to kind of see the Stillwater Public School System in action, and Rosemary Sundin from Orman Guidance Research. And we have worked with Orman Guidance over the years on a number of projects, so I'm going to let Rosemary introduce herself and her firm.
Thank you, Deb. I'm Rosemary Sundin. I'm the president and owner of Orman Guidance, which is a consumer insights and data collection company. We've been in business since 1975, and I have been at the helm since 1993. We have successfully completed over 10,000 market research studies. Fortune 500s, nonprofit organizations, and school districts all rely on the expertise of Orman Guidance. Our value proposition is that we don't just collect data. We bring you insights, which is really what brings the data to life. And what we're really pleased to be able to offer you tonight is a real life snapshot of what is going on in the district among the different families. So I would also like to recognize Vanessa Mullenix, who is my research associate and was more than 50% along for this project, and how pleased we were as a team to be able to work with Stillwater. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, great, thank you. So
as Deb gets started, I know she did ask me if you can hold questions until the end. There's a lot of information they want to get through, might answer questions along the way, but feel free to jot things down too.
yes, please, and then we'll welcome all questions, any and all questions at the end. Okay. So the project began, now I know Carissa just gave you a great overview. When she contacted us, we said, okay, there's three things we want to really understand. And that was really understanding the perceptions of Stillwater area public schools by the community. What do people really think? As we all know, as we work and live in a community, we hear things, we have ideas, but we want to know what is the real pulse. We wanted to also better understand why those who have left the district have made the choices that they've made. again, there's nothing better than going out and actually speaking with somebody to find out the answers. And then third, understand how to better tell the unique Stillwater Area Public Schools story, because you have a unique story, but people are leaving, and so why? And so if we can really understand that, it's going to help and shed light on that. It will really help you as a district grow. And so that's what this is about. So our presentation is in 2 separate parts tonight. We'll be walking you through the insights and some of the learnings, and we'll be sharing those with you, and then we'll go through our recommendations at the end, and then we'll open it up for questions. Sound good? Okay. So before we walk in or start walking through the actual insights, I wanted to share with you a little bit about our process. So this is the process we use. We start with a brand audit, and that brand audit also includes key stakeholder interviews, which we conducted a number of. And that informs that plus our audit and our competitive audit. So we looked at Stillwater Area Public Schools communications, past research studies, and then we took that information and we pulled all of that together, and that informed the market research that Orman Guidance conducted. And so from that body of work, which you'll be seeing the key insights from tonight, that informed our recommendations. So some of the insights start with the competitive audit. And we looked at 6 schools and school districts. And the reason these were chosen is that these are the schools that you are losing most, in districts that you are losing most of your students to. That's what the data showed. So that's how we selected these schools. And so you see St. Croix Prep, St. Croix Catholic, Matamidi, River Grove, South Washington County, and Hill Murray. And then we have Stillwater on the right. So what we do when we do a competitive audit is we look at their messaging, we look at how they present themselves, we look at their communications, and also some of their social media as well. Then we conducted the market research, and I'm going to let you do the overview of the methodology, because this was a quantitative study. And
thank you. Yeah, thank you, Deb. Yeah, it was a mixed methodology, and it started with quantitative, and it evolved to qualitative. And let me just explain how that works. We start with an online survey, which we deployed to Orman Guidance databases. These are cooperative respondents that have registered with our company. We also deployed a survey link to the lists that were provided to us by Stillwater, including parents, open enrolled parents, staff and teachers, and students. I think I got it all. We also purchased some sample from Dunhill International to augment some of the geographies within the very big school district of Stillwater. We had some soft spots, and so we purchased a list that was aiming at some of those softer geographic targets. Listen to this. We got over 1,000 people, 1,011 people filled out the quantitative survey online, which says a lot about Stillwater as a school district and how much people want to be involved. And I'll be really brief with the rest of this. Once all the quantitative data is in, Vanessa's team takes it and they filter it. And what they're filtering for is the type of respondent that they are. Are they a teacher? Are they a parent? Are they a student? Are they current in the district? Are they open enrolled? And then we got, drilling down to all kinds of demographic mixes with that filtration process. But we also, and this is very important, we also brought in a mix of attitudes, because we asked some very open-ended questions in the survey. And we actually even had people saying, I can't believe you invited me to participate in a focus group after everything I said about Stillwater. But we brought them in. We brought them in together, and we led conversations, and we observed where people agree and we observed where they disagreed. We're finding a lot more agreement than we are disagreement. So just very, very briefly, it was 127 from the open enroll parents. It was 145 from the Dunhill sample that we purchased. 399 families participated from the district and inside the district, 127 former students that graduated, and 213 that are on the staff, a mix of admin, teachers, and support. So a really robust mix of participation, and then 8 focus groups, including a deeper dive that was a pre-assignment before the focus group. We can get into that later if you want to hear more about it. But just a wealth of data and insights, which we then turn over to Deb, and she works her magic. So let's hear more about that.
Thank you. And this is why Rosemary is here, because she has all the data. She can answer any question you have. But one of the most important things that we wanted to be sure of, and when I spoke with Rosemary, was that we received a statistically significant report, so that you could make some very great, and decide your decisions would be based on statistically valid information. So what we've learned from the market research is that, number one, most parents have good feelings overall about the sense of community here in the district. You have a lot of pride, and pony pride specifically. We'll talk about that in a minute. But overall, teachers and staff are lauded here as well. So this is something that we heard when we did our initial, our key stakeholder interviews. But they're commended for their care specifically and especially for pre-K through 4 children. And there's, I think, some words that were shared with us were love, that people can feel that. The third bullet point up on the screen talks about the wide variety of special ed services and support. That ranks highly among the people that that answered this study. And that there's about 20% of the district are utilizing those services. Athletic and music programs help rally the community. There is definitely a sense of pony pride. There are some thoughts about whether or not this is too focused on athletics, and is there an opportunity to expand this to include the performing arts and some of the other programs that you have here in the district, including academics as well. The last bullet on the screen talks about academics and literacy scores being mentioned frequently as cause for concern. And when we do research like this, there are some things that we are going to find that confirm those suspicions that we had, and there are some things that we're going to hear that offer new insights. So you'll be hearing as we move through the report that there are some things that you'll say, okay, this validates what our assumptions were, and hopefully there are some new learnings as well. 72% of the parents surveyed indicated that academics is the most important consideration when they're choosing a school for their children. And you probably can't see these charts on this screen, but if you had access to or the report, and I know that you will if you don't already, but the comparison of Stillwater area public schools to other choices helps us provide some insights as to why people might be choosing some of the other schools based on perceptions. So we ask questions to understand how families are perceiving the different schools and districts, and also the staff and also students as well. So when it comes to rating which school is the best option overall, 32% of the parents say that Stillwater is the better option, compared to 10% that say St. Croix Prep is. 32% of parents believe that St. Croix Prep performs best in academic achievement, compared to just 12% that believe Stillwater area public schools performs best. So that's an opportunity, right? We also saw that 32% of the parents and 43% of the staff answered, I don't know. That's also an opportunity. So when we look at that, we say, okay, so if they don't know, then that's an opportunity for us to work together and to get clear and be clear in our communication as well. The first bullet on this screen talks about the fact that school closures in the northern part of the district and logistical issues with busing have created challenging circumstances for families, and this I know you know. So this is one of those validation points. Proximity to schools, this is a factor in why, is a key factor in why people choose to live where they live. And then the third bullet talks about the fact that there is concern, this validates the concern about the high school, the size of the high school, and the fact that 56% of Stillwater area parents report having children in the age ranges of pre-K to 4, and 43% report having children in grades 5 to 8. So they're moving up in that direction. The second to the last bullet on this screen talks about the fact that among parents most affected by school closures, some feel that there was an overall lack of transparency. And again, this is not something that I know I heard before we did the research, but they felt like there was a lack of transparency around school board elections, not just the school closure, but the bonds, funding allocations. So that was what they shared in the research. The last bullet talks about the stabilization of district leadership. And there really is a critical need voiced by many to stabilize district leadership. And not just at the superintendent and administrative level, but also at the school board level too. So some key words and phrases that were mentioned consistently amongst, I think, all of the cohorts, students, parents, and staff, were things like animosity, struggle, volatility, negativity, divisiveness, polarization, political toxicity, frustration, and some even went so far as to say embarrassing to the district. So you're taking strides already to remedy this, but this is good information in terms of taking this forward. The pull quotes that we have on the right-hand side just help to augment some of this for you. The opinion and sentiment that the school board and administration is not optimally functioning was prevalent among all three cohorts at the percentages that we share here: 40% of the parents, 38% of the students, and 44% of teachers and staff. We know that academics are important, and one of the quotes here is just that the school district asks for more and more money, and the test scores are not improving. And they cited the 58% literacy as not a standard that they liked. We also learned that social emotional learning is very important, and this was shared by the three different cohorts that were responding to the survey. So the statistics show the percentages of the audience members surveyed who rated opportunities for social emotional learning at a 5, or the top, as we sometimes talk about it, as the top box score, or most important. So, and you see that on the right, the chart on the right. 69% of the parents rated it as a 5, 76% of the staff rated it as a 5, and 72% of the students surveyed rated it as a 5. Further, 89% of the parents surveyed rated opportunities for social and emotional development at a 4 or a 5, important or most important. So that was a fairly significant number of parents that rated it that way. We also learned that diversity, equity, and inclusion are of much greater concern to students and staff than to parents. The presence of a diverse student body and was very important to 76% of the students and to 64% of the staff, whereas when you look at the parents, it was important to 43% of the parents. So, and that is shown there again in the chart on the right. We also learned that the desire to give children a broader worldview was considered to be very important also, but to 56% of the parents versus 77% of the students and 73% of the staff. Additionally, having a diverse mix of cultures reflected in the teacher and staff population is very important for 41% of the parents compared to 71% of the students and 63% of the staff. As part of the survey, people have an opportunity to add some open comments and when we ask key questions. So this is an opportunity for us to really learn what comes to mind, and not to give them choices, but to see what they share. So when we asked about the successes from the past school year, the following were the topics mentioned most frequently for all three cohorts. So for parents, it was in-person, friendships, socialization, connections, grades, and test scores. And we can see the impact of COVID on these answers, right? And that's true for everyone. For staff, the topics most frequently mentioned were in-person, transition from COVID, support, and teamwork. And for students, it was teachers, graduation, arts, honors, and relationships. We also asked them what were their main concerns, what were their top concerns from the past school year. For parents, it was busing, politics, bullying, and masks. Again, we can see the COVID piece here. For staff, it was leadership, burnout, mental health, behavior of the students, and division and community. And for the students, it was diversity, support, administration, and bullying. Now, we also asked them what their hopes were for this coming school year. For parents, it was friendships and relationships, academics, no masks, respect. And for staff, it was leadership, support, mental health, unity, and clear communication. For students, we heard diversity, inclusion, real-world learning, student involvement, listening, and public health. A couple more pieces before we move on to recommendations. One piece of information that came out that we did not ask about specifically, but we thought it was important to share, is about online and hybrid learning options. While it was not incorporated into the study itself, it did come up a number of times. And though only 7% of the survey respondents do participate in online learning, we heard that some members are very interested in this. And there were even some quotes, and I pulled one out here that says, Stillwater is way behind the times in offering hybrid approaches that entail in-person as well as online learning. Of course, this would require further inquiry because it is anecdotal, but we thought we should pull it out for your reference and for your awareness. Because as Rosemary mentioned, that was a very large body of work. And so I wanted to help bring those key pieces of learning forward for everyone. The last point here is that we do encourage further review of the research report because it is very in-depth and there are many other important findings that can help the district as you develop your strategic plans moving forward. So now, where do we go from here? So our recommendations based on where you're at today and what we learned there are 9 of them, and they build on each other. And we'll go through each one individually, and then we'll recap all of them at the end. So recommendation number 1 is to engage with and heal the community. Start by sharing key research findings like this with leadership, staff, parents, and community. It's important, we feel, to level set with the facts, acknowledge the past, and share via in-person, Zoom, meetings, community events, however you all come together as a community, but share that. And then align the school board and consider bringing in a consultant to aid in the alignment if needed. So that happens. There are people who specialize in that. Number 2, create a phased key message platform for the district tailored to each audience. The goal here is to inspire belief and trust and hope about what is to come. We believe if you tailor these messages to the staff, parents, and students, and within the student body to middle and high school, and then the community. Phase 1 establishes trust. Phase 2 lays out the path forward. And Phase 3 inspires everyone in the community. Because it's evident that everybody wants the same thing for the kids. It's all about the kids. So recommendation number 3 is to hold a series of town hall meetings for staff. Build trust with staff by establishing an open environment rooted in clear communication where all voices are heard and relationships can be built and nurtured. Our 4th recommendation is to engage the community to co-create what's next for the district. Really leverage the passion, leverage the pony pride, and invite members of the community, parents, students, teachers, staff, to participate in task forces to help envision what's next and what comes after today for the district. Use the learnings from this study as foundational elements and for strategy sessions. Our 5th recommendation is to develop a roadmap for creating the Stillwater area public schools of the future. Articulate a clear mission and vision for Stillwater area public schools, identify and prioritize those areas that are most pressing, like literacy, academic achievement, social emotional support, school, class size, that's important, and diversity and inclusion. Our 6th recommendation, we're getting near the end, is to craft a compelling differentiated story for Stillwater area public schools. Based on the research and the visioning work that you'll be doing together, you'll be in a position to tell your rich, authentic story in a way that's very compelling and connects on a deeply emotional level. I really believe this, based on what we heard and what we've seen and witnessed. And recommendation number 7 is to create an educational campaign for the community that focuses on what is needed to prepare kids for the future. Root that campaign in facts and data from the study, especially around social emotional learning and diversity and inclusion, because things are changing. And help the broader Stillwater community understand what skills young adults need to succeed in school today and the workforce of the future. They're asking for it. And recommendation number 8 is to create targeted campaigns aimed at families approaching key transition points. I know this came up in some of the conversations we had early on, and it became very apparent as we read through the research, that this would really be a huge opportunity for you to provide all the reasons they should come to choose Stillwater over some of these other options. You have the breadth of activities, real world learning. You have a lot more to offer in many aspects than some of the other schools that folks are choosing over Stillwater. And obviously you would want to target those messages depending upon the grade level. So there's different transition points, obviously, so different messaging. And our last recommendation is to signal that change is taking place by revitalizing the Stillwater area public schools brand identity. Now, once trust is established, we use design, we use identity, we use brand strategically in our organizations to help us achieve what we want to achieve. Once trust is established, a roadmap is clear, and you have that vision set, we recommend signaling that change to the community through design that expresses the new improved Stillwater area public schools brand. The degree to which you shift or alter anything or where you go with it is all dependent on where your strategy is taking you. So if it's a small shift, it doesn't have to be a big change. If you decide that you're going to be doing something vastly different, then you can use your brand and your design to help you communicate that. So we have all 9 of our recommendations on one screen, and if you look at them, the first 5 are the foundation upon which the last 4 are built. So I know you probably have a lot of questions, so thank you, and we'll open it up now for everyone to ask.
There is a lot here, so I was kind of thinking, how can we best get our questions without, ping-ponging all over the place? So I thought maybe we could kind of go back to the beginning of the presentation. I'm on what we learned from the market research, and I thought maybe if there were questions initially on just the research side, and like one of the questions I had was, were we able to talk to students and families who have made other choices? So like that actually left our district, and were they included in this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they were. They absolutely were. Let's see, we had 127 of them participated in the quantitative study, and then we had dedicated two focus groups? 2 focus groups to the topic of open enrollment. So in those 2, out of the 8 focus groups, we gave people who were either homeschooling, they were in the district, but they were at a private school or a charter school, or they lived in the district and they enrolled outside the district. So we had.
It wasn't open enrolled, like living somewhere else and choosing our schools. It was making choices outside. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Can I just say there are very, very few of what you just described?
Okay.
Although that wasn't the focus of our data collection, but organically, you would expect that would have come up too based on our outreach.
Okay.
And not very often, not enough for me to mention.
Okay, I was just curious.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bouncing off yours, I'm not sure if that's what you just said. You interview people that leave, why did you leave? But I think just as important as people that come from outside in, why'd you come here? Because there's a positive that we could do more, keep doing more. Do we get much of that?
Right, no, I mean, you do have that in terms of the parents that are currently here and why they are here. Our focus in the research was more about the problem of people leaving. So that's where our, not our focus, but that was one of the prongs that we wanted to look at.
But we do have people that come in, right? We just don't have much of that data.
Yeah.
And just for context, Pete, we have far fewer that are coming in than leaving. I don't know the numbers offhand, but we can get those to you, but we're talking a few hundred opt-in and thousands leave.
Are leaving.
Yeah.
So that's part of why the research was so important and why we focused the way we did, is trying to understand why people are making those choices.
But I will say, I mean, there's a lot of great news about what people love about the district, and we collected all of that data.
All right.
Thank you. Yes, Director Petrie.
Can you talk a little bit about the focus groups? How many people did you actually speak to? How many people, you said you had 8 of them. How many people were in each focus group?
We had 6 people in each focus group. The focus groups were conducted over Zoom. They followed a prepared discussion guide, which was reviewed in advance by the full research team and approved, and it's in the appendix of the reports. You can see what we asked, but it followed a very methodical process. And we've been doing hundreds of interviews and groups on Zoom for, like we're in our 3rd year doing that. And it's fabulous because people are, they're more apt to say, yes, I will participate because of the convenience factor. And on our side at Ormond, I mean, if I do say so myself, we've gotten very, very good at making sure we're engaging everybody in the focus group, that there's nobody hanging back and not speaking, that we're building ideas off of what people are saying, and that we're being very respectful. When we had those skirmishes that kind of blew up into, it got a little uncomfortable from time to time, and that was good. I mean, we needed to see that too, so, yeah.
I'm gonna go back to my other question. People that leave the district, does that include prep, St. Croix Catholic?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a little non-apples to apples there, because there's no such thing as a prep person coming open enrolling into the district because they're already here. So somebody leaving the district, do we really call that leaving the district, even though they're staying within our boundaries? What about people that actually leave the boundaries of the district and go like to Hill Murray or even South Wash?
Sure, yeah, we were looking at this in context of two things. You're either in the public school system or you're not in the public school system. So, I mean, in very broad terms, those were the two big cohorts.
Okay, so there really can't be a number coming in unless they're really coming from outside of the district boundaries, right?
Like,
I'm sorry.
the Minnesota Department of Education, and Carissa, you can get them, maybe in an update, provide them this information, tracks open enrolled students into the district. So we have the number, and we can actually tell you, we won't give you this level of granularity, but we actually can tell you what districts and what places they come from. What we don't have as good of a handle on is the internal, if they're, you know, if we have students here going to Montemita, if we have students here going to South Washington County, yeah, we can track that information pretty well. I think we can probably even do it to some of the privates.
Okay.
But we can get you that data.
And we did share a report on that with you earlier this year. If you remember, we had an enrollment report that showed the number of students that are, and where they're going and where they're coming to us from. So we have shared that with you. Does that sound familiar?
I'm wondering if it was before. I'll make sure that enrollment report,
We'll get it
we
to you.
have that.
Okay, we'll get it
To the whole board. Maybe it's good just to resend it to everyone. I know my question related to the who we spoke with. Was there demographically, did we represent, you know, kind of socioeconomically, racially, all of the above?
Yeah, absolutely. We had a full set of demographic questions in the survey that included age, gender, race/ethnicity, household composition, income, occupation, work status. Yeah, yes, right. And then does your family represent any of the following? And that was things like English as a second language and LGBTQ, immigrant.
Right.
Yeah, so there was a whole special needs, yeah. Yeah, so there was a whole, so all of the data was collected around all of that demographic information. And I am so excited to be able to tell you that we were keeping track of, you know, what we were collecting in terms of how does our data collection match up with the census in the area. We came really close. And that's, you'll see, there's a chart in the report that reflects that. Yeah.
We knew that would be really important.
Yeah.
Yes, Director Petrie.
So was it mostly just parents, or were there other community members that you included in this, or was it, especially like with the focus groups, was it just exclusively parents,
No.
different groups of parents? No.
No, we had adults that never had children, that never got married. We had adults who had raised their family and whose family now has grown up and gone and they're empty nesters. And we actually did one focus group solely on that cohort. People that currently don't have children in the school system, you know, for whatever reason. So, yeah, we interviewed people like that as well. Not just parents is the short answer to your question.
So it sounds then that we are not just assessing why students might leave our district, but we're also just looking for information on general perceptions of the district within our community.
That was a huge piece, yes.
Okay.
If we think back to the objectives, we really wanted to understand how people perceive the district, and we wanted to understand that based on the lens that they view the district through. So it was really important that we had lots of conversations about making sure that we were getting the right number of respondents from each of the different cohorts and different demographic areas.
And you'll see that in the report. It's very thorough. And you know, every data point that we asked about is accounted for in the qualitative and the quantitative sections of the report.
And we're gonna see that report?
Yeah, so two thoughts on that. You know, I don't think the board has seen, I think this was sent in your packet. We can certainly send to the report. You know, I also would recommend that you post it online and let people throughout the community,
Absolutely.
you know, full transparency here. See what, you know, community-wide, what folks are thinking.
When I was reading this, I actually thought this is a really good pre-work to what we were talking about in our first session, which is we have this expired, you know, strategic plan. And so there's some good information in here, and it's really in line with a lot of your recommendations, kind of that foundation. So I think it would be good for the community to know that. So I think that would be great. Yes, Director Porbeni.
Thank you. I don't know if you broke it down, but just in terms of the demographics, are you able to say specifically where some of the concerns or some of the opportunities were in terms of the perception of the district? In terms of the demographics, the different demographics specifically?
I'm gonna.
Yeah,
Rosemary answer that. Yes, absolutely. We have, some pages of the report are dedicated to, what people are saying about diversity and inclusion, and that we make a point to say what the parents themselves who represent either a person of color or LGBTQ, or special needs, that, you know, their voices are heard. And they, of course, have very specific and very relatable concerns.
Let me repeat my question again.
Okay, I didn't get it right.
So, you talked about parents without kids in the district.
Yes.
So that's a demographic, right?
Oh, correct, yes.
So you have other demographics that were also mentioned, but let's focus on the ones without kids in the district.
Okay.
What was the main concern and the general perception about the district?
From people
From just that cohort?
From people that, okay.
You may or may not have that information, but I just wanted to know, because I know you said you had some focus group discussions with that group.
Yeah, okay, so what I mean, because I'm sure I have a table in here, I didn't anticipate that specific question. But as long as you asked, we can definitely say that the community aspect of Stillwater is very attractive to people. You know, even the ones that don't have children in schools still appreciate, you know, having the energy of youth, having the energy of sports. We had people talking about that I don't have kids in school, but I go to the concerts because I appreciate so much what they're doing. There was a lot of discussion for those that had children in the school system, but whose children are now grown up and gone, talking about how, you know, it's generations of families that have gone through the Stillwater school system, that there were parents, there were even some teachers that, you know, had graduated from Stillwater and came back with their families or came back to work in the district. So, you know, whether you have children in the district or not, there's some, you know, very fundamental things about Stillwater that make it very, very attractive for people. But, you know, the small town kind of community aspect, like, hey, there's my fourth grade teacher across the street, I'm gonna go say hello. And we heard anecdotally, you know, all kinds of experiences like that one. Does that help? Sorry about not getting it the first time.
That's all right, thank you.
Yes, Director Kelsenberg.
The survey was done, it was online, it was opt-in, so if somebody's eager to fill out the survey, they'll fill out the survey. There might be some people out there that are so eager they'll do it 10 times. Is that possible?
No.
No?
I mean, we have, Vanessa, you can answer that. It's the code on the end of the survey tells us from what IP address the survey. Yeah, and I mean, let me tell you something. I think it would be great if I had that problem, that people are taking the surveys 10 times. I mean, you know, like getting people to, you know, get through the survey and do it once is very, very exciting for us. But we didn't have, I don't think we had anybody in the survey that was trying to like put their thumb on the scale. And our numbers are so strong that I really feel that, you know, what we got was a prevailing landscape of opinion in this district. I mean, if we had like, well, 20% said this and 30% said that, that would be one thing. But it's things like 76% of them are saying, you know, so you've got some pretty strong numbers to work with.
All right.
I wanted to kind of, if there are no more questions, kind of on that, how the demographics and how it was all set up and structured from your point of view. Maybe if there are just some questions on the perceptions and some of the conclusions that maybe people had questions on. I know there were several slides on that. Director Petrie?
I had a recommendation, or I'm sorry, a question about recommendation number 1. It was engage with and heal the community, start by sharing key research findings with leadership, staff, parents, and community. And one of the things that was said is that align the school board. Align the school board with what exactly? I wasn't quite sure what you meant by that.
Okay, good question. Just make sure that the school board is not divided, because we heard that there was divisiveness within the school board. So just align around the focus and objective of what you're here to do. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So now we're looking at the recommendations. I'm sorry, was it my
Well,
turn?
no, and I did, and that's fine to talk about the recommendations. I was gonna kind of do that next. I just thought maybe just to chunk it out, we would maybe just focus on some of the perceptions. And there might not be, perceptions are perceptions, so there might not be a lot of questions. We may want to just move to questions on recommendations. But I just thought if anyone has anything on the perceptions. Yes, Director Hocker.
Actually, my question was on perceptions. On slide 79, it's kind of a specific question, and I'm hoping you can give us a little bit of insight. Slide 79 was the one, what we've learned from the market research, and then the first point, diversity, equity, and inclusion are much greater concern to students and staff than to parents. And then you gave us the numbers, and that kind of stuck out to me. And I have no idea how that compares in other districts. Is this kind of a normal trend where it felt like there was a little bit of a gap between what parents are thinking and believing versus what the staff and students in our schools are desiring?
Well, I mean, we have worked with other school districts, so we can tell you that these numbers are pretty consistent with what we see in, you know, districts that are more like in the metropolitan area, like right there, Minneapolis, St. Paul. So yeah, there wasn't really anything surprising for us when you compare what this data was to other data that we've collected, same issue.
And I had that same thing that stood out to me, so I was wondering if that's pretty typical, you know, something you typically see in when you are doing these for schools. And I always think to myself, you know, it's probably even more exacerbated now because, well, once parents and families, adults aren't in our schools on a daily basis. And then with COVID, they really haven't been volunteering either. So the people that are typically there, so really our staff and our students are the people that are there on a daily basis.
Here's the thing, I'll just put it very bluntly. In order for particularly students to really feel supported, they want to work with people that look like them. And that includes, you know, teachers and staff and guidance counselors and what was the title? You have a diversity person, I can't remember what his title is, I'm sorry. But that there is some reticence on the part of the students who are of color that they, you know, who's gonna relate to them? And so like them being right there, experiencing that, and the same thing with teachers, experiencing that is different from a parent sitting at home and just hearing about it. So that's where like I'm not at all surprised to see that the numbers are higher from the people that are actually experiencing this versus the people that are at home just hearing about it.
Any other perception kind of questions? I know one I had was the high school being too large. You know, we hear that a lot from families. Was that confirmed, or did that stay true for students? Because oftentimes I hear something different from students than I do for parents on the size of the high school.
I can take that as well. I mean, that frankly, and you'll find it in the study, that the size of the school is less of a big deal to the kids than it is to the parents. The parents are worried that their child that's in the middle of the stream is gonna get lost. then the kids that are, maybe struggling a little bit are really gonna get lost. But the kids themselves, I mean, they, when they get into the high school, at first, they're like, oh my gosh, this is so big, but they learn to adapt quickly, and for them, it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah, so maybe that's more of like a messaging too, like you said, just getting the word out on some of the programs and what we do to.
Yeah.
Sure. To make it manageable. Any other perception? I was, and this might be COVID related or it might not be, but I was, I think the concern for social emotional stood out as that everybody knows that that's a concern right now and an area that we need to support our, not only our students, but our staff as well. I know Superintendent Funk mentioned that earlier today in terms of being a theme for our staff kickoff. So I think it was nice to see that consistency and recognizing that across the board.
And I think you're going, if I may say, I think that the more that parents are involved and invited to be involved, I mean, according to our research, like they are just so ready to put their oar in. I hope that they were all like really ready to follow through on that, but we had a lot of very, very enthusiastic feedback about the research itself and the implications of reaching out to the community in quantitative and qualitative research.
If there aren't, did you have a couple, did you say you had, okay.
Nope.
If there are no more questions kind of on the perceptions, just moving forward on the recommendations. I know Director Petrie already asked one. Were there any other questions on the recommendations? Sure. Yes, Director Kelsenberg.
Two questions. I'll just ask one right now. You said one of the recommendations, hold a series of meetings for staff. Who would hold those meetings? Are we looking at Mike right here? I'm sorry, Director Funk?
Yes.
Dr. Funk to hold those? Okay.
Yeah.
That's simple. All right. Then my other question was, all these recommendations, you do this for a lot of schools. What sticks out as unique to Stillwater that's different from the other districts as far as your recommendations?
I have quite a few, actually. One is that the percentage of families that are here for the whole experience, like, pre-K all the way through senior year, it's at a pretty high number. Also, the people that graduate from Stillwater High School that come back here to work or come back here to raise their families, I think is really something. That's a very unique part. I think also the fact that we heard, again, it's anecdotal, but we heard it on a number of occasions from the focus group participants, that having that sense of community with teachers and staff, like you're at the grocery store and the teacher isn't like, don't look at me. The teacher is like, hey, how's it going? Or even like, I graduated 10 years ago, but I just bumped into so-and-so and, we ended up going out for coffee. I mean, just there is a sense of community in Stillwater that really, in the words of one of the respondents, really kind of reminded him of like a Mr. Rogers, even like where like you know the police officer, like you might take the kids on a field trip to the post office, like you don't get to do that in city schools, but in Stillwater, things are small enough, and especially the neighborhood aspect of some of these schools really is a strong reason for parents to bring their kids to this district.
And the pride, that the pony pride piece is a big piece that came up, and that, like, to augment what you were talking about with the small town feel, that is unique.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, Director Corbani.
Thank you. So, I mean, we've talked about the pride that we have here at Stillwater. So one of the questions that I have is, we know what we have. So those that are leaving, do you have any information for us as to why?
Yes. I think academics is a big one. So,
Serious.
would you?
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
academics is first. Second would be if a parent has a special affinity for like St. Croix Prep, that they've got, that their kid has a certain, aim perhaps, and they, want to get into serious academics. The class sizes for parents, again, it's a bigger deal to parents than it is to the students, but parents are leaving because they feel like their kid is gonna get lost in the shuffle. So, and then another reason, this is very, very important, is that, so much of it centers around where do the parents work? How are we getting the kids to school? Can the kids walk? Can they bike? What do we have to do to get the kids to school? And if it's too much, they're gonna go to a school or a district where it's the, easier path to get the kids to school. I mean,
Proximity was.
yeah, proximity is 9/10 of the happiness law, for families.
But I would say the academics was number one.
Yeah,
right?
definitely academics would be number one, but all of those other things came up as well.
Yes, Director Petrie.
So I'm just wondering about next steps. Can someone address what we're going to do with this report?
I can speak to that a little, and maybe Dr. Funk wants to jump in too, but we've already started. So we've shared this with our directors team, and we are looking into this information. You'll hear, as Dr. Funk was saying, our staff, when we're bringing staff back, we're talking about the mental health and the self-care. Those are things that you heard come right out of this of what our staff need. So as we're starting to plan for the year, we're looking to this information to help us with that. From my work, we're actually digging in to do some of those key messages and starting to do that step 1, 2, and 3, and 4 right here. I know the strategic planning piece is going to be a main focus area for us this year. That was like 5 or 6 in your recommendations. And Dr. Funk and I have had some conversations about that already. So I think there's a lot of data that we're just still trying to process. We're trying to make sense of how we're going to really implement all of these things and what that timeline and the process would look like. But we're already starting to pull out what are those key messages and what are the things that people really need us to be sharing at this point so that we can address those needs for our staff, for our kids, for our families.
Two statements on that. One, there are some really short messages that the district can send out that promotes some of the excellence here at Stillwater Area Public Schools. You guys gave us the report, so 5 minutes later I walked into Carissa's office and I said, all right, how many of our staff have master's degrees or better? Probably 80%. I said, on this slide of our competitors, who else can say that? Okay, so there's just an easy, another challenge, I think, from a lot of private schools in general is, they cannot, rate of pay, they can't afford folks. And so there's a lot more turnover with young staff who go and teach at a private school. And so another easy question is, all right, what's the average tenure or length of service of a, educator here at Stillwater Area Public Schools? So again, I think there's just some really short-term opportunities there to get us some real strong messaging. But furthermore, I think when we're looking at a longer-term strategic plan, this is just outstanding data that we can look into and utilize as we're sitting down to look at different initiatives for the school district as we, prepare for the future here.
One thing, and I know I'm breaking my own kind of structure here and how I was going to do this, but I just want to make mention, because you talked about little things that you can do. One thing that did stand out at me on this report was the bullying. And that just seems like a short-term need to address if there's bullying going on in our schools. I know everyone in this table would agree with that. So I guess I didn't want to lose sight of that when that was a little concerning. I don't know if that's isolated to in any particular situation.
It's like, it's everywhere. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe just kind of, I know we have processes in place to, you know, to speak up and to, but maybe better, maybe it's a communications of how we address it, or maybe it's a staff, a building issue. I don't know what it is. I mean, that's on your side of the fence, to reference our earlier work session, but it just did stand out at me as something that is unacceptable.
I'd like to circle back to something too. Going back to Director Pravini's question about what are the learnings from people who are leaving. You said our number one issue is academics. Could you break that down anymore? Did you get any more information from, like, is it test scores? Is it ability to get into colleges? Like, what in the academics realm are people most concerned about?
Sure, go ahead. I mean, the one thing that kept coming up again and again and again is what's going on with the third graders. I mean, they are the ones that got hit hardest, right, during COVID, because they're starting school and yet, you know, what are they doing? So a surprising number of parents knew the statistic for what's happening with the literacy at the third grade level, that something like 58% are not reading. And so that's a very big thing in terms of academics, but also test scores. Like Deb said. You can.
It's in the report. It's broken down. You'll love the charts.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it's easy for parents to get this information, right? Like how schools are performing. I mean, you can get the report card from the state of Minnesota.
Yeah. And I think it's also helpful for us to know that because I think that did stem back, if I'm from our world's best workforce goal. There was that 56, we were at 56%.
Okay.
And the SMART goal recommended by the committee, by the community-driven committee, was 58, to make it achievable and a SMART goal. Okay. Certainly it's not the goal of anyone in the district, but I think it got kind of, I think if I'm remembering right, just more for Superintendent Funk's background too in this. But I would say that I think as a district, we could be talking about different benchmarks for achievement probably more with our families, because the MCA is but one. I mean, I think we've talked about that a little bit in the past, but where are kids coming in and then where are they leaving, and what's that growth, and what are the, you know, we have daily assessments. I think we've had staff come in here and talk to the board about those daily assessments that go beyond the MCA. So just side note, but again, I think a lot of this is just communication and messaging and being a little bit more proactive with our families and what we're talking about. So, yeah. Well, I think we've questioned you out. Thank you very much.
Sure?
I'll look forward to reading the full report.
Absolutely.
But really good information, I think good information moving forward, and good timing with our new superintendent coming in. So good data.
Thank you.
Well,
Very good.
and we
Thank
want to
you.
wish you all the best for a really great 2022, 2023, and good luck.
And a good
Thank you.
start to the year.
You guys are going to be really great, and
I'm excited for you. I
we're
know.
excited for you.
Well, thank you so much for your work. We appreciate it.
And thank you to the board for supporting us and allowing us to do this work. It will be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. In person.
Okay, we are on our last item, and this is for Superintendent Funk, school board meeting format.
So this ties in perfectly with what I'm suggesting here as we move forward. So as we turn to look at the clock above us, and it says 7:56 p.m., all right, this board has been here since 4:30 this afternoon. And historically, I have seen boards do this, exactly what we've just been through. And that is, we have a learning session of some sort, then we come to a board meeting, and we get into a good topic at a board meeting, and then we are here really late into the evening. One of the concerns that has been brought to my attention here when we talk about stability in the school district is board member turnover. Somebody's told me that we've had, I think, 17 board members in the last couple of years. Is that correct? Yep. So one of the things that I told the, I have, you will find from working with me, serving with me, that I have a lot of different sayings that I utilize in my time as a leader. One of them is work smarter, not harder. Okay, and I truly believe that. And I think a lot of times we work when we work and we work, and it impacts us physically, not only here as board members and administrators, but it also impacts us when we go home to our families, et cetera. So, and again, this goes along the same lines of self-care and taking care of one another. So we do have a lot of late meetings that we have, and we just talk through a lot of good things. However, I think we can do it in a little bit different format, and I'm bringing this to your this proposal for you to consider tonight. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So currently, well, as I said, we've had a kind of a work session and then a board meeting. So what I'm proposing is we change our format, and the first meeting of the month becomes a study, a learning, a work session, whatever you choose to call it as a board. This will allow you to examine issues in depth, just like we just did, prior to approval, if we're gonna have to approve something at the business meeting the following month. And it will also include, if we have to bills to pay or something pretty simple, it'll include and I've got a proposed agenda on the next slide, but it'll include a placeholder for action items if we need to approve something on a cycle. The second meeting of your month is your typical business meeting, kind of like we did tonight. And this is where you have your open forum prior to the meeting. All meetings would start at 6:30. And I know some of you are rushing to get here because of your jobs. You don't have to rush so much anymore because we don't have this other session at the start. And so what this does is it does a couple things. It helps focus in, okay, we are gonna learn in depth about a few topics at the study session. And then, okay, it gives you an opportunity to really learn more about the district. And then the second meeting is the business meeting. And that's what we conduct our business. Go to the next slide. So here's kind of what the study or whatever work session, whatever we're gonna call it, would look like. To call to order, approve the agenda, action items if we have any. And it's really just it's a consent type situation. And then study session, and then adjournment. So I know I read something, I think Allison, you sent it to me. I think Monticello just went to this format a few weeks ago. Elk River's on this format. We went to this format a number of years ago in my previous district. It helps provide focus, clarity, and it reduces, I think, burnout for some board members. So that's just a thought, and just curious for your feedback on that.
And I can also speak just from my standpoint, 'cause something like this is appealing because as we're looking at doing like the board self-eval, it is impossible, and rightly so, to find another time in the month where the board is all available to participate and do something like that. Where this, we can schedule it in advance, and it can be like, this is our study session, and it's our self-eval. Or it's something like tonight could possibly even be moved there. Or so it offers, in my opinion, I like this proposal. I think it offers some more flexibility to dive deep. I think it fits in line with what you're saying on governance. I think it will allow us to study some topics and have discussions around achievement, around where we can just focus a study session on, achievement and just kind of, I love this. But yes, Director Haber.
In having experience doing this format, did you transition into this format? And if you have, how did the meeting timings work out? Did it make your business meetings extra long, not having two to go through the agendas, or work sessions, if you only have one of those a month, are those extra long because we're trying to go through 3 topics in one night? Just kind of how does that impact the timing length of our meetings?
Well, I can tell you what it was before we did this. So before we did this, and this is many, many years ago now, we would have our study sessions would start at 5. Board would go into detail, some more than others. We'd finish 6:15, 6:30. Board would run across the room, get something to eat, come back in. 7 o'clock, the business meeting would start, and we would typically be there till 9 o'clock. So it's 4 hours every night of time commitment. It wasn't always 4 hours straight, kind of like tonight. There was 15 minutes in between. So it's dependent, I mean, I think you're pretty strategic in again, I think the board chair meetings, when you're looking and planning out the year, okay, you've got these learning sessions built in, all right? And it's working with the administration, okay, what's the interest to the board? You could do your social emotional piece. You could have 2, maybe 3 topics of more in-depth a night on the learning or study session side of it. I think our board meetings actually, the business meetings actually went faster because we were talking about other more in-depth stuff at, like, for example, tonight, this would be a perfect example of a in-depth review of some good data. So, I mean, and again, I think it would be rare, I wouldn't say it'd be rare. It would be rare for us to go over an hour and a half for a meeting in Elberly, for a business meeting. And typically, maybe a little over an hour would be where we were with that.
Just a question, did staff, I'm assuming you ran this by our team here.
Yeah, we've talked about it.
Did they see that there was any issue in could they fit everything in a consent and then a one business meeting? Was there any concern?
I don't think that's, I don't think that's an issue at all. I mean, consent is not controversial. And again, if we have bills to pay, we could put it there. But you keep that in there just in case, because something a few times a year does pop up. Okay, we got to get something approved, and it goes on. It's a regular meeting. It's just a different format. Yep.
Yes, Director Kelsen.
For instance, today's meeting, we had reports, the second reading, market read. Would that be in the business meeting? Or would that be in the?
You could do your, you could do your, I mean, it's dependent upon the board. You could do your policies here, or you could just, it could be our policies are gonna be at every business meeting. That's how we're gonna do it. That's really a discussion with the policy committee and how you wanna address that moving forward.
And it might be dependent on the policy series.
And I mean, here's a great example, all right? Your first policy could be in this meeting. And that way, in a study type session, because that's where you're gonna get the questions. And then your second and third reading, or could be at the regular business meeting, because you're gonna have, much less questions.
I like that.
I'm in favor of giving this a try. I mean, I think that, certainly when I came onto this board, meetings were lasting 4 hours and sometimes 5. And I think that we have worked hard over the last year and a half to try to be a little bit more efficient with our meetings. We've gotten away from the idea of board members talking endlessly and arguing back and forth like it's a ping pong game. And I think that this is another step in the direction of becoming more efficient in how we conduct the district's business. And so I would like to see us try this and see how it goes, because I agree with you. I mean, it's a high bar for people to say, wow, do I really want to join a school board where they have 3-hour meetings, twice a month, plus committee meetings. It's a lot to ask of people. That sort of public service is a lot to ask of people unless you just don't have a job. And that we don't want to limit public service to only people who have no jobs outside the home. So I would like to try this and see how it goes.
The other thing I would say to this, along those same lines, is I think it improves attendance. I think, okay, yep, I can commit to, these couple hours here as opposed to, oh, here we go. I've got this in my world right now. I got to rush to this meeting, and then I got to be here for 3 or 4 hours. So I think, and that makes it more effective for the whole board because then all the voices are here.
Well, and I like your analogy, and I'm a huge proponent of it. It's the work smarter. And I think there's opportunity for, in this format, to actually be a little bit more, staying in our lane and kind of doing the, the governance roles, and just kind of, even, I'm envisioning, we have strategic planning that's gonna be ongoing and long-term. I mean, this format allows us to almost singularly focus on discussing our strategic plan. I mean, it's not gonna, where we can have a community listening session and discuss it in this kind of format, and not be here till 10 at night doing so. So I like it. I think one thing that I see from the community standpoint, so I just want to be completely transparent, I don't see public comment on this meeting. I'm not opposed to that because I really do believe the community knows that there are a number of ways to reach out to the board, to staff with concerns, with questions. I mean, we've got email, we can, phone calls, we can schedule meetings. We still have public comment once a month. We certainly want to be open with our community, and but I just wanted to point that out and be transparent about that. I don't know if anyone has concerns for that. I think that, oftentimes we don't have a public comment. I think it's worth a try. I think it's gonna better serve our students and our staff, so.
What do you want to call it? I've got work session, learning session, study session, meeting.
I feel like a study session. I prefer study session because I always go, work is kind of work, and then listening or learning is when you're, but I think study could be either, where, I don't know. But that's just my preference. I'm completely open to, I like study session, but, I'm open to anyone's thought. I don't think it really truly matters, but I know we go back and forth between work session, learning session. And I think that having one name might be helpful, and study to me is a little bit more all-encompassing, but.
Because you're going to study a topic.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it might be a nice break from the language we have been using, to kind of show that change that we're shifting, how we're doing stuff, yeah.
Yes, Dr. Kelsenberg.
I think the public might like it as well.
I think so too.
Because the meatier meetings are gonna be the once a month where you come to that one. And they won't have to sit through some of the stuff we did earlier today. And it's 12 meetings a month, really. And then 12 work sessions.
Right.
Or not a month, 12 meetings a month, 12 meetings a year, 12 work sessions, study sessions a year. And you could start planning the year on whatever, January, we're gonna do this, February that.
Honestly, there's so many ways we can be capturing, in my opinion, community feedback other than a public comment. Maybe we allow at a certain time of year for our community to suggest study session topics. Maybe I don't know. There might be an opportunity to just engage our community in a different way. And I don't know what that is, but I like to try things that are different, that I think can better serve. We're all here to serve our students, and I think the more we could more efficiently and effectively serve our students and find different ways to engage the community. Public comment does not appeal to most people. They don't like to come in here and they feel nervous, and I know I spoke at public comment. It wasn't always the most appealing thing to do. Sometimes there are other ways, I guess, so I think we can do that, and Is there anyone here with concerns about moving to this format? No? Okay.
I will give it a shot.
Yeah, give it a shot, try it out, reevaluate.
When would we start this new?
October, whatever.
Okay.
Whatever the first meeting is in October, whatever date that is.
Okay.
No, wait, we're still in August.
September?
So September.
I was
September.
wondering.
Oh,
I thought-
September,
I
okay.
am,
I thought maybe we were taking a break, you
Yeah,
know,
so-
everybody rest in September.
I am so, I've only been here this long. Since-
Yes.
Yeah, September, this first meeting in September, we can do it.
September, okay.
Yep.
Could we send, obviously, we want to be communicating with the public.
Sure.
So something that would go out to the public to communicate this in article.
Sure, absolutely.
And I mean, certainly feedback from the community along the way. We try it out and hopefully it works great and everyone's welcome to,
That's what I was gonna say.
yeah. I mean, always send an email. Let us know your thoughts.
One more thought. For our work or our study sessions, will there be a consistent time to start those as well? If the-
6:30.
6:30.
Everything's 6:30. Oh, fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That will be, and I'm telling you, it'll just be so much easier, I think, to schedule meetings because we already meet so much that doing other meetings is just impossible. Rightly so, no one's fault. I mean, it's exactly what you said. So thank you for bringing this idea to our attention. I'm thrilled to try it, and I think it's gonna serve our students and our staff much better, so. All right, that is it for this evening. If there is nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you.